This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
Sadio on the Mane for Liverpool as Champions League football is signed, sealed and delivered on the final day as Gini Wijnaldum waves farewell. It's the Debrief live here on the Blood Red channel. I'm Clarke. Theo, Squires here with me as we bring you immediate reaction to the 2-0 win over Crystal Palace. Sadio Mane with both the goals. Theo, what did you make of it? Rather routine in the end.
Yeah, I think how the season's been for the last, since this turn of the year, really. You expected a bit more drama, didn't you? The fact that Liverpool have done it quite comfortably, was it ever in doubt? Like, the results elsewhere going their way, and you think how the season's turned out. They've gone from first to eighth to third, and it's a position Liverpool would have happily bitten your hands off to take a couple of months ago. And it's almost a stroll in the end, like Crystal Palace. So there was that early scare when Andros Townsend was 1-on-1. But as soon as they got the opening goal through Sadio Mane, you just knew job done. And as the results came in from elsewhere, with Chelsea losing, Leicester eventually throwing it away, it's like, why were we ever doubting it? This is Liverpool with fans at Anfield. When you've got the players on form, you've got fans in that stadium. They are one of the best teams in the country. The only reason they're not challenging for the title this year is because of injuries. Jurgen Klopp said it. And it's now 2020, 2021 is out the way. They've got what they need to do. They're in Champions League and they can go again next season. They can welcome players back from injury and they should be challenging for the top titles again, because if they can finish third in the season they've had, considering where they were in March, it shows how good they actually are.
Yeah, I have to say, coming into the weekend, I thought, well, all three sides have to win. That probably won't happen. But in the end, Liverpool actually, the only one, two have won. The other two, of course, not even being able to pick up a point.
Yeah, it was like we almost got a bit of drama. Early on, it was Liverpool who were down in fifth, dropping out as Leicester, I think, took the lead. And Leicester winning at Tottenham at one point. It was Chelsea dropping out. So they've all had their own little spells where they were sitting fifth in the afternoon. But it's just Liverpool got the job done. It's why they are Premier League winners last year, Champions League winners the year before, because they've got these winners in the squad, because they are as close to the finish article as they have been compared to these two teams. Like when we've been doing these podcasts in recent weeks and we've been talking about this final day, it has been Chelsea going to Aston Villa with fans is not an easy place to go, especially when it's a year when there haven't been fans, when they've got that Champions League final distraction. And with Tottenham as well, there was, Leicester, there was always that mental hangover from last year, whether they would let it slip again. And evidently, that's what they've done. Where there's FA Cup hangover too, and it's all come to fruition. So it's like Liverpool have had their scary moments along the way, like nearly dropping points at West Brom, but it's just come together at the right moment for them. 9 games unbeaten in the Premier League.
10.
Is it 10?
10, yeah.
Oh, 10, I've completely missed one along the way.
Yeah,
it's one where you overlook it, don't you? It's only when they got this close to fourth that you realised how good a run of form they're actually on. And now it's all just come together at the right time for them.
Yeah, no, it definitely has. And in terms of that, it is kind of Liverpool have earned this, haven't they? They've deserved to get themselves into that top 4 on the final day. Of course, ended up finishing third. But yeah, 5 wins in a row at the end. Of course, the draws with Leeds and Newcastle. And before that, 3 wins in a row as well. So just working out the maths on the spot, 26 points from 30. It's some going.
And that's not bad when you consider the centre-backs were playing in the Bundesliga 2 and Conference North last season, is it? We all know the problems Liverpool have had, but they've managed to turn it on at the right time. The players have stepped up and they've been counted. Like, there are doubts about Trent Alexander-Arnold earlier in the season, about Sadio Mane earlier in the season, Roberto Firmino, about the midfielders and all these doubts. As soon as Jurgen Klopp put Firmino back in midfield, he had 2 centre-backs at centre-back, and they've sort of turned it on. They've got their heads right. Sadio Mane's come up today and he scored the goals when it's counted after what's been a horrible season for him. Said the same about Roberto Firmino in the last couple of weeks, scoring big goals. Trent Alexander-Arnold, probably just before he was dropped from England, has been in incredible form for the last 3 months, and it'll be criminal if he's not included in this England squad for Euro 2020. Liverpool have been hurting this season. They've had the horrible moments. They've been missing key players. But when it's really counted, they've stepped up and they've had that belief in themselves to get the job done. And when they haven't had that belief back in February, March, you didn't know where a goal was coming from, never mind where a win was coming from, it's a testament to their character that they can deliver it, that they can pull it over the line, that the fact that they are champions rather than waiting, whatever you want to call them, they are serial winners. and it is just circumstances that have stopped that happening this season. Lesser teams wouldn't have had the mentality to turn this form around and get it going in the last couple of months. They wouldn't have had the mentality to finish third, to finish fourth. It's just one of those what-if seasons, isn't it? If you hadn't had all these circumstances, if there had been fans in the stadium without pandemic, if Virgil van Dijk, Joe Gomez, Joel Matip, Jordan Henderson, all these players have been fit for the majority of the season, what could Liverpool have achieved? They'd have been able to put in a proper title defence. But Manchester City had a little bit of that last year. They lost Laporte. They didn't have that defensive stability, and that's why they were so far behind Liverpool. That gives you a little bit of hope. Well, what can Liverpool do next season now with those players back?
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? A wretched season finally now over. The bare minimum expectation achieved. Champions League football is secured, but as you say, it has been a woeful tale of a season really for Liverpool, but at least they have got the job done in the end. Sadio Mane, he had his sulk at Old Trafford, didn't he? He was off the boil at both the Hawthorns and Turf Moor, but he was there when it mattered today. Johnny on the spot for the opener and got a bit of fortune that he's been lacking in recent weeks for the second.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming for Sadio Mane, and people have actually started to question whether it was start of a natural demise for him as he gets a bit older. But I think that you can have no doubt about it. He was a completely different player the last couple of weeks. Granted, he wasn't at his best at Turf Moor, but he has stepped it up a bit. And he's got 2 big goals. And it's one where you can't really question his place in the team now, can you? When you've got your players, big players, performing on the big occasions. We always said he's one of these players that needs the fans to really be at his best. And he's rewarded them today. He's said himself he's had the worst season of his career, and he doesn't know why. That he's had tests done to see if it was something physical, and it's not. You can just put it down to circumstances, like Liverpool's whole squad will be putting it down to this year. It was just a case of get to the end, get it over and done with, get into the Champions League, and then you can forget about it and move on. And it's almost a position where you're thinking, it's a shame the season's finishing in a way. The fact that they're on this amazing unbeaten run, that finding form at the right moment, you don't want them to have 2-3 months off now. You want them to keep going. You want them to have this surge. Instead, they'll be putting their efforts into international football or enjoying the holidays. And then as soon as pre-season's on, we go again. New signings in, whether it's a centre-back, whether it's a new forward. You've got that competition for players. Players welcome back in pre-season from injury. And there's that feel-good factor. It's back at Liverpool. It's back at the AXA Training Centre in Kirkby. And it's something that's been lacking for most of 2021. So fair play to Jurgen Klopp, fair play to the squad, because they have turned it around when it's mattered.
Yeah, you mentioned Mane and being one of those players who needs the fans. In fact, obviously he scored the last time there were fans at Anfield, didn't he, in the 1-1 draw with West Bromwich Albion. But in terms of getting the job done and the fans being there, 10,000 of them, of course, certainly, I imagine, help play the part. And even, I suppose, sort of case in point for the whole season, that chance early on for Andros Townsend, a few nervy start passes and a bit of a nervy start for Liverpool, but I think the fans probably had a few cross words and groans and shouts, and all of a sudden Liverpool got into the groove.
It's one that settles the nerves in a way, having the fans there, because you know you're going to get that support from them. Like if it was Andros Townsend running through 1-on-1 and there's no one there making a noise, it's almost an easier chance for him because he can pick his spot and have all the time in the world. We know how much difference Liverpool fans make, and it's one where we'd love it to be 55,000 people in Anfield, but it's not. It just can't be at the moment. But we know how much difference 10,000 of them can make, because it sounded like more than 10,000, didn't it, if we're honest? And maybe that's just because of how silent it has had to be this season. But Liverpool's home form back in December when fans were in the stadiums was great. And it was only when you took them away again that it fell apart, and Liverpool's title defence fell apart. So the fact that this is that big step now to get fans back in the stadiums, it's a step in the right direction for them headed into the new season, because we know what this relationship is like. We've heard all the players and the managers say how much they've missed them and how great it is to see them back inside this stadium. And this is 10,000. Hopefully, come August, we can say it's more than 10,000 after a successful challenge at the European Championships, with putting more fans in. And then Liverpool can reward them for what has been a tough season for all. Like, it's the fans itching to get back in that stadium, the players itching for them to get back in that stadium. And it is worth extra points. It does make a difference in games. Liverpool wouldn't have been able to beat Barcelona 4-0 a couple of years ago without fans. They wouldn't have been able to win the Premier League by winning pretty much every single week before taking the fans away. It's giving them this advantage back to the title race. We said at the start of the season, City wouldn't be affected taking fans away. Liverpool would. That's how it's turned out. Let's see how it goes again next year when you give them back.
Yeah, and we hope to see, obviously, a full crowd there from August. In terms of the other issue we must just address before we go, Georginio Wijnaldum subbed off with 12 minutes to play. James Milner coming on for him, given a brilliant reception and standing ovation, of course, as he was leaving Georginio Wijnaldum, and he looked rather emotional. It seems, Theo, that is it.
Yeah, he looks emotional now doing the lap of honour. He did his interviews with Sky before the game, and he says, as things stand, this is goodbye. And it's one where there's almost that little glimmer in the back of your head. Maybe they could still sort something out. But as things stand, this is the end of his Liverpool career. This is the end of the story. This is the end of the chapter. And it's a shame that it's had to come to this, that he hasn't been able to agree a new contract with the club. But at the same time, there's no room for sentimentality. He is one of the older players in the squad. He would want a pay rise. He would want, 2-3 year deal. And you've got to make these tough decisions. And we've said all along that Gini Wijnaldum would be one of the first tough decisions. If Liverpool really wanted to keep him, they could have given him the big money and agreed to the terms, but they haven't. They've used that money to go elsewhere, to strengthen the squad elsewhere. But he is a Liverpool legend. You cannot take that away from him. He scored the goal that got them into the Champions League in his first season in the club. In his second and third, he scored the goals that got them into the Champions League finals. And he scored big goals all the way through when they were winning the Premier League and all the way through his Liverpool career. He's such a big character of the squad. It's the reason why he's part of the leadership group. Part of me does hope that maybe there'll be a situation where they go back to the negotiating table later in the summer. Like, we know clubs are all struggling financially, and that's probably why Barcelona haven't already been able to wrap up a deal for him. Like when Emre Can was leaving, it was the worst kept secret. It was going Juventus, but we still don't know where Wijnaldum's going. Like, the fact that his agent had to come out and do a come and get me plea to Bayern Munich shows he has not got his future sorted yet. There's rumours still about Bayern, Inter Milan, PSG. Barcelona's gone a bit quiet. That means there is still hope there that if Liverpool wanted to get it done, maybe there is room to manoeuvre. Maybe he'll lower his demands or accept a year less on his contract later in the summer. But as it stands, I think he was saying, 1st of July, he won't be a Liverpool player. But the only blessing for it is at least he had fans there to say goodbye to him, because so many loyal players who've served Jurgen Klopp in this club in the last few years haven't had a proper farewell. And Gini Wijnaldum has been one of the most influential players, one of the players who has played the most under Jurgen Klopp. He got to go out the way he came in, delivering Champions League football to a hero's reception, a hero's welcome. And you could see the hugs he was getting off all his teammates on the bench, off his manager, giving the standing ovation from the fans, how much he means to this club and how much he means to the fans. He might not be a Liverpool player next season, but if he ends up signing for one of these big European clubs, he'll come back with one of them potentially in the Champions League, and he'll get just as good a reception there. He's been a wonderful servant for this club, and it's just a shame that they haven't been able to work on a deal.
Yeah, an icon of Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool side. It looks as though that could be it then for Georginio Wijnaldum in a Liverpool shirt. That's it from us here on the debrief for this season. Liverpool, in the end, sealing a third-place finish in the Premier League and, of course, securing Champions League football on the final day. Sadio Mane's brace enough to see off Crystal Palace and send Liverpool into the Champions League. From myself, Guy Clarke, and Theo Squires, thanks for your time and your company here on Blood Red. It's bye for now.
This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool